There we go. Thorbjørn, Thor, very nice to see you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Nice to see you as well, Mamikon. So it's nice to finally meet you.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen each other, I think, on
Yeah,
the
I
World
think.
Model Expo, but very briefly. And
Yeah,
there was a lot of drinking, a lot of stuff like that. So it was hectic. Um, but yeah, overall, how was your week? Did you enjoy your week?
yeah, it's been all right. I mean, just a lot of work, but now it's going to be a weekend, so that's going to be great. Gonna relax a little bit. And what about you? What did you do?
Yeah, just a busy week, but I'm very happy that it is coming to an end. Really looking forward to the weekend as well. And this video, this podcast is supposed to be basically a podcast, but I'll have some questions in the interview genre. So first, I'd just like to ask you, how did your journey start with miniatures?
That's a good question. So I probably got my first miniatures when I was around 10 years old or something like that. I'm 28 now, for reference, so it's almost 20 years ago, and I wasn't really much into it. But my older brother, he had like a large army, and I just got a lot of orcs, and it was basically the beginning of it. I kind of fell in and out of the hobby throughout the years, but I would say probably 6 or 8 years ago, something around that time frame. I got interested again. I went by a Warhammer boutique. It was called like Warhammer just at that time. I guess before it was just Games Workshop. But I just kind of went in, and the guy was just really good at selling a starter set to me. So I just went home with the starter set. I kind of didn't remember much about it, but yeah, that's how it kind of began. And then a couple of years into that, like I guess that would be like 5 years ago or something, I started commission painting a little bit. I did that for maybe a year or something. I kind of got a little bored, and I kind of lost interest in painting after that, because it's a lot of hard work just doing commission painting, especially if it's for wargaming.
Yeah.
So that's when I kind of picked up sculpting, because I was kind of getting tired of just painting, I guess.
Okay. Well, this ties in well, I think, with some questions I had planned for the latter stages. But so you're also a painter, right? So you can paint, and you obviously, if you painted commissions, you paint well. Would you say you're a good painter as well?
Well, I guess it's very subjective, right? Because a lot of the people I hang around are like inevitably I'm gonna collaborate with a lot of very good painters when I do these sculpts, that they're gonna do the box art or something like that. So like compared to these people, I'm not good at all. But I guess in the according to the average, I guess I'm pretty good. So
Okay, that's very interesting because I think with sculptors very different. Some of them don't paint at all. Some of them are also amazing painters, and some of them are just average. So it's nice to see that you also have been painting. And do you paint for yourself? Do you ever paint your own sculpts?
yeah, it's funny. Like usually when I'll sculpt something, I'll always think about, oh, how I'm gonna paint this, but then I just never maybe I start painting it, but I never get around to finishing it. Or, like rarely. It was actually why I did quite a few academic busts in the past, and I have enough willpower to get through painting those. But otherwise, I don't really paint a lot of my stuff. But sometimes I do, but rarely.
I see. And is there a point of inspiration you got first? For example, one of your first favorite artists, and who inspires you today as well? Could you name? Are there any people like that, or are you just by yourself? Or
No, I think there's a lot of people that inspire me. It's really shifted a lot through the years. So I guess I also have basically a background in oil painting and like traditional canvas painting. So that was basically my starting point. Also drawing, but I was always drawn to high realism, something that's very realistic. So in the past, I would say my biggest inspirations was probably people like John Singer Sargent. I don't know if you know about this guy, but it was like an oil portrait painter. It was really good, and basically his methodology was that it should be like you shouldn't over detail small things, but you should look at the overall look of the painting, and that is basically gonna create the impression. So he was basically in the start of the Impressionist era of painters. So I really like Impressionist painters. And then as I began sculpting, I kind of shifted a little bit. So I was really into those Impressionist painters like the French guys. And I don't know if you know Bouchereau. Have you heard of him?
It rings a bell, but not. I'm not that familiar with his work. Probably.
It's fine. It's also like 1800 painters or something. But going from that, I kind of went into sculpting. I was very inspired by these, like mostly by marble sculpting. And one of the reasons I never picked up sculpting in the past was because I really wanted to get into marble sculpting or nothing, because I had already dabbled a little bit in clay sculpting, basically sculpting and milliputty and beast putty, stuff like that, polymer clay. But I wasn't really satisfied with that. So I was like, okay, I'm not really going to do this unless it's going to be marble sculpting. I was really inspired by like sculptors like Bernini and of course Michelangelo, like classic sculptors, at least in the Roman era. So yeah, I guess those were my main inspirations in the past. But now, like sculpting like miniatures mostly, and digital sculpting, I guess I really get inspired by a lot of the other sculptors. So there's a lot of really good sculptors especially in Spain, like Paul Latour and Victor Aguilar, and yeah, there's a lot of good sculptors there. And
sure.
Yeah, so it's that those are basically the people I get inspired of. Yeah.
Sure. And I also had a question about whether you've been a traditional sculptor before as well, or do you have any skills in that area as well?
Yeah, when I began, it was was mostly in polymer clay. So I don't know how familiar you are with that, but that's basically clay that has to be baked for it to harden.
Something like Fimo, maybe?
Yeah, Fimo, I guess, is also something like that. And I guess the advantage of that is that you can work in the medium as long as you want, more or less, and not be restricted by time as you are in green stuff, for instance. So I played around with that for some time. I did a couple, I think like 2 busts and maybe a full-scale miniature of that. And it was fine, but I guess I had the last draw when I did a really nice full-scale miniature, and it had just been sitting for too long on the shelf, and you kind of have to they will kind of harden a little. They will become brittle. I don't know. It's like they will kind of crumple in a way if you don't do anything with them for a long time. So I was like, okay, I'm done with this. I gotta find something else. So that's when I started digital sculpting.
I see. And going back to commissions, do you remember your first sculpting commission?
Yeah, I do. It was I haven't actually been digital sculpting for so long. It's been like 3.5 years, maybe 3 years or something.
Sure.
So it was like for this Danish company, Norlys Miniatures. So I go to this little club, I would call it, like a painter community here in Denmark called Promenade. And we have a lot of really good painters there. And one of them is called Jacob, and he has his own company called Norlys Miniatures. Mm. And I was kind of playing around with digital sculpting. So I showed him, I've been working on this. Is this something for you? And he was like pretty open for the idea. So he commissioned me to finish it. So I guess we worked on that for a few months. And it was this kind of nymph kind of woman, like forest lady druid. It was called Daphne. So I think it came out pretty all right, given it was the first sculpt. But yeah.
And are the pictures of this commission or this work of yours available online as well? We can check it out.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of my first posts on Instagram, I guess. So it's probably like 3 years ago or something like that. And
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
that
Whatever.
there should be some pictures there. I think that Kaha painted it also. Yeah, I have the Kaha version. So that was pretty
Very
cool.
nice. Very nice. And I think this brings us very nicely to a question. What is your favorite sculpt you've ever done?
Actually, I put some sculpts here because I have a couple here. So there was a few that kind of stand out for me. I guess the favorite one I have was this one, the Queen of the Moon here.
Oh yeah.
So I really like especially this version just with the Queen in the moon throne. There's also a bigger version. I really like that one because it was such a pain in the ass to do. It took a year to sculpt it, the whole scene, and
Wow.
I had finished like 70. I was like I was like 85% done with it, and I lost like half of the progress. I lost the file, so I worked for this guy called Rudik. I do a lot of commissions for him, and also do a lot of the presentation of his other miniatures, the vampires he has always. I do renders of them, which is like a digital representation of how it would look physically. And it's kind of funny. He has so many vampire models that all the folders are just called like vampire this, vampire that. So I was just deleting folder after folder of these pictures because it was taking up so much space. So it's like vampire knight, vampire guy, vampire girl, vampire queen. And I was like, it didn't really register until I was like, oh, vampire queen, that's my project. And I deleted everything. But I had a little backup of like when I was halfway in my laptop. So that was like adding 4 months of work more again. So it was really annoying.
So for anyone working in the office, it's like working on a very big Excel and not saving, and then the computer crashes and you have to do it again. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's awful. Yeah, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about Karl Rudik because I'm a big fan of his work, his company, his miniatures as well. I really love the aesthetic of the work that Karl has been putting out, either by his own sculpts or by sculpts that he is commissioning. So, uh, where was the partnership forged? As in, did you meet somewhere, or did you just meet online and he reached out? How did you start the partnership?
I think after I had finished my first sculpt, the Daphne one, I was basically I've had a lot of hobbies throughout my life, and I've always have like the kind of hustle mentality. So if you want to kind of propel yourself as a career, you kind of have to really reach out to everyone and try your best to actually get all the opportunities. So I was writing to a lot of different companies, and I just sent him a message. I think it was, I don't remember, somewhere on social media, and showed him my portfolio, and he was like, "Oh, you can try this." And that was the first sculpt we did, which was Joan of Arc. It was like this as a fantasy version of a knight. So I found it was very interesting. He had some concept art, and that's kind of where it began. So it's been we've been working together for almost 3 years now.
That's very nice, and you've created some insane models for Karl Rudik. So I highly encourage everyone to check it out. Check out your work and check out Karl Rudik and his company and your busts. And obviously, if they buy a lot of the busts, you will probably, get a lot more commissions. You will get commissions anyways because you're an amazing sculptor. But it's, I think, good for everyone when attention is brought to amazing work in the community. And that's, for me, that's always what I've been trying to do a shout out for every amazing new painter, to encourage people, because you said you started almost 20 years ago. I also started 20 years ago. And at that time, there wasn't really a community because there was no social media, I felt. There was no community. And also, if I went to my local store, I would be told how awful my painting was. So I thought, nowadays, when someone is struggling, let's try to help everyone. But anyways, and I also wanted to ask you, you've obviously appeared in this video by Squidmar yesterday. Well, for the listeners, it'll be a couple of days ago, but with this amazing sculpt of a, is he a wizard or a necromancer? This older gentleman.
Yeah. So the explanation I got from Emil is his name is that basically it's like this necromancer guy. He's the kind of a sub leader of this faction that are able to kind of raise the dead or something like that. And they also kind of they need to sustain themselves with life of all living beings, so like animals and stuff like that. So he has all of these small animals hanging around because I guess he kind of sucked the life out of them. I don't know. That was kind of the brief I was given. So, but yeah, it was a pretty fun project. It was a little different than usual. Usually, I'll be working on a project for something like that. I would like to work on it for like a couple of weeks, but it was like, okay, you have 4 days. We'll just try and see what we get out of it. So yeah, it was interesting.
So I had a question before that video was published. I had a question if you do any other work except for Karl Rudig, but now I can see that you do commissions on for different artists as well, for different clients. So that's very interesting that you also work with, like a freelancer. And I wanted to ask you if you had any like legitimate education in arts. So have you went to a college or a university of some sort of arts, or are you changing your path on your own now?
Yeah, so I was studying biotechnology. I did finish my master's in it.
Wow.
But like while finishing my master's, I was kind of saying, okay, this is actually a way I can work full time with sculpting. So when I finished that, I was just, okay, let's see what happens. So I'll just try and see if I can live over it, and it was fine. So I both teach and also do. I only do like freelance stuff, so it's not like I'm working with only Karl Rudig. I actually work with probably 20 companies or something. But
wow.
The thing is, a lot of the work I do is like you'll probably sit in like a year or two or something, because the schedules some of the companies have is like you'll do something and it'll be like a year or two before it comes out. So I have worked with a lot of other companies, but Karl Rudig, he's like I've been working frequently with him, and there's a lot of his models that are getting painted. So I guess that's why it's mostly out there. I think it was also been the most ambitious projects because he likes to do like really big stuff.
Yeah, that's great. And I think I saw a couple of posts on your Instagram where you said that your partner, your wife, also sculpts. And I saw some of the sculpts she did, and I was just blown away by how amazing it is. And I was wondering, because, often when we have girlfriends and wives in this hobby, we try to teach them. And if you're a great master yourself, it's easy to lift someone up very quickly. So is she still sculpting? Does she have a plan to make it into a career as well? Or
That's funny you ask. So my wife was always drawing a lot, and she's really good at like she does like some like almost hyper realism stuff. So she's really good at it, and she's much better than me. So she was always kind of the artist. I was always in music instead. I was playing guitar for 15 years before I started really getting into sculpting. So she was mostly into the visual arts, and that's when I kind of started doing the sculpting thing. She got a little interested. She had she took a short education on digital media or something like that, and she did work with sculpting throughout that time. So it wasn't that difficult for her to kind of pick it up, and she's very good at it. I think she could definitely get as good as me, or maybe better. I don't know, but she just doesn't really have time and maybe the interest in miniatures. But she does sculpt now and then. She does have a few projects she's working on, and I did release my own version of Godrod's Broom recently, and she did help with some of the anatomy. So I do like to kind of have like if there's something I see in a commission that okay, this could be interesting for her to learn, I'll try and help her guide her through it, so we can use it like that.
That's amazing. And was it her initiative to get into sculpting, or did you say, "Hey, do you want to try this?"
I think it was me because I don't know. I think it's like it's pretty usual. It's like this in a relationship. There's a guy who has some kind of nerdy hobby or something like that, and he'll just kind of beg his wife or girlfriend to just please try it. So I guess I was like that for like first it was like music, and then it was like miniatures, like playing with miniatures, and then it was like 3D sculpting. And 3D sculpting, there was something about it that she did kind of find interesting. So I guess that's why she kind of gave it a shot.
Sure, that's amazing, and hopefully she will sculpt more because again, the one sculpts we've seen have been amazing and very promising. And I wanted to ask you about a very crucial and important part of this hobby for me and for many hundreds or thousands other painters, top painters. Do you like the competitions, either in sculpting, in painting? Do you enjoy the competitive part of it?
Yeah, I guess it's like the competitions. I have been to some competitions, international competitions, and I do like competing, but I also feel like it's a lot of I don't know what to call it, but it's a lot of like friends kind of patting each other on the back because it's a lot of the same people, uh, at least in the top, I guess. That kind of maybe it's just my perspective because all of my friends, I just see them kind of winning the same things all the time, and maybe it's just because the people I'm friends with are very good painters. I don't know, so maybe it's a totally other reality for like people in other circles of friends. But so for me, it kind of seems like it's just the same people kind of giving, like judging and then giving like goals to each other or something. I don't know. Maybe it's just my perspective. I don't know. But then also I do think like it depends a lot of the competition. So there are like these podium competitions where it's more like there's a like first, second, and third place. So that would be like Golden Demon.
Yeah.
I guess the old Crystal Brush was a little like that as well. And then we have the competitions where like Montes and Savino or World Model Expo, where you get a medal based on what the judges deem your basically your entry as. So if they see your entry as a gold, you'll get a gold. It doesn't really matter how many people get gold, but of course you will be judged kind of according to your peers, I guess. So we'll see that. Of course, not everyone is going to get a gold, right? So it's going to be it's still going to be difficult. So I think that what I do like with the competitions like Golden Demon that has a first, second, and third place is that it does seem much more rewarding if you do win because there's not like 10 other people getting the first place, right? However, on the other hand, you don't have something I really like about going to competitions, and I didn't really know I would like about them, is that you'll sit at a table with all your friends and you'll all be cheering each other on if you win something. And I really like that aspect. Like I remember at World Model Expo, I was like, I did win a gold there, but in sculpting. But one of my friends, he was so nervous about not winning in the standard category, and seeing him win in it, it was just like fantastic in a way. It was a really good experience. It was like some real, I don't know, kind of friendship there. You can just feel that everyone is so happy on the behalf of the other person. So I do like that about these competitions where there are a few more rewards given out based on the performance rather than just the exclusivity of who wins. I don't know.
Sure.
What do you think about it?
Well, with Golden Demon, for example, because it's so different nowadays to World Model Expo or Monty, it's we only get 3 places. But I went to this Golden Demon 10 days ago in Nottingham, and for example, on the single categories, in the single 40K and single Age of Sigmar, you have at least 25 just incredible pieces. Of course, you have Albert, you have Richard Gray, you have these Slayer Sword guys that are on the top level. But it's just incredible how the judges are able to choose just 3 pieces. Probably if I would be the judge of Golden Demon, I would just say at some point, guys, we have to make it 4 golds, 17 silvers because it's insane. And what do you do if, for example, because a golden demon, they're searching for mistakes at some point where they want to determine who has the better paint job? What if you can't find a mistake on every of the 10 amazing miniatures you have, So I obviously really like the competition part of this hobby. I had some similar troubles as you had with gaming, with painting miniatures for an army. I, always wanted to play, but always rolled once when I had to roll 6s and stuff like that. So I thought I'll stick into painting and I'll prove every hater wrong. And I'm still on this journey. So, and this World Model Expo was my first open competition, as in, for those of you who don't know what an open competition is, it's where you can get, 10 bronzes, 7 silvers, and 5 golds. So it is very interesting. It has been a wonderful event, and I'm really looking forward to going to more of these events in the future. But it would be very nice to have one competition that everyone would like and everyone would agree that this is amazing, because I think there's a lot of critics of Golden Demon. There's a lot of critics of the open competitions. So it would be very nice to see something that is universal, as like Oscars, get a lot of slack and people criticize them, but everyone agrees that if you win an Oscar, it's just the top of everything. So I don't know, it's very interesting, and there's more to explore, I feel, in the future.
Yeah, I think so too. And also, you touched a little upon the people not liking certain competitions. I think there is I guess in regards to the most I guess most people that are into wargaming and maybe are not extremely dedicated to painting. I don't know what to call it, but people that are obsessed with painting. I think the competition that are held in the highest regard is probably Golden Demon, I would say, for the most people that just like Warhammer. And I think a lot of especially the high level painters, have issues with Golden Demon in regards to that. So you touched the way that they basically judge is looking at does this have a mistake? If it does, then it's not gonna win this. And if which one has more mistakes, that's the one that gets the bronze or something like that. And the problem is, when do you determine what is a mistake? So coming from the oil painting I touched a little upon earlier. Well, if you look at some of the paintings prior to the Impressionist era, so that would be people would basically paint something as realistic as they possibly could. That would be the peak of painting. And what people kind of realized is, well, it's impossible to paint every pore on a person. It's just not possible. But what if we kind of paint a bit more abstract, like in the Impressionist era? You can sometimes get a more realistic outcome just because that it's kind of the same function that happens in your brain. If you look out in the dark and you think you see a face, your brain will kind of fill out the blank a little bit. So if you do something that is painted very realistically, but of course you didn't do all the small details, your brain will sometimes kind of fill out those gaps, and you will just interpret it as something that's super spot on. It's a little difficult to explain, but that's basically a little bit the thought behind the Impressionism, I guess, for some of those painters. And here comes the issue. So in the Impressionist era, you would have visible brush strokes, opposed to the era before it, where you'd have these super thin glass paintings where you can't see a stroke. So is it a mistake that you can see a brush stroke? I don't really think it is. I think it's a texture that gives it something else, and it's I think that's what can kind of make it a piece of art. But of course, they are going to judge it upon their, I guess, their style, the heavier metal style or whatever it's called. So I do understand that there's this like this kind of issue, but yeah, I don't really know what the solution is. I don't know what your take is on it.
Well, I think to solve all of the issues of all of the competitions, you would have to have a big round table with the heavy metal guys. So the people that judge the Golden Demon usually, you would have to have the older gentlemen that work on the historic stuff and all the classic, stuff that got us into the miniatures back in the 40s or 50s or whatever. And then you would also have to have a couple of guys that critique Golden Demon and have created those other amazing competitions. So every competition I think is amazing in its own style, but it would be just wonderful to have something that unifies everything, everyone. And because again, you go to Golden Demon, someone might say, well, not every master is at Golden Demon. You could name a few of the old masters or the new masters who don't go to Golden Demon. And then you would say, well, World Model Expo is like the painting Olympics. Sure, but if you get 70 awards per category, it kind of dials down the prestige to some people, not to me, but to some people of the winning. So it would be very interesting, and I doubt that it'll happen in the next couple of years, like a round table of every competition, and then a creation of something insane. But I think we have to be happy with whatever we have right now, and I'm happy at the most part with whatever we have at this moment in time. Who knows? Maybe we will create something in the future that will be very interesting. But it's a bold thing to say, considering that these competitions have a very long history, longer than I've been alive and you've been alive as well. So we will have to see. And on the competitions, do you plan to attend any future competitions in the next year or so?
Yeah, I'll be at Monte San Savino. So that's in Italy. I don't know. Are you planning to go there?
I don't know. I was planning to go, but I will have to see too many competitions this year already. So, but it would be amazing to go, and I'm intending to go, and I've heard so many amazing things. So sooner or later, I will go.
Yeah, I think that's it for this year, and next year I'll probably go to like SMC or something like that. And I don't really know at Adepticon if they have any. Just talk to some of the people there to maybe make like a workshop or something. I'm not sure. So maybe something like that, or I also talked about some other places. I don't even remember their names yet now. So I'll have to see what I'll do next year. It depends a little bit. I did kind of find like so it's kind of a weird thing. So like for me, kind of winning the gold in the world at the World Model Expo was something I really wanted to do. But after I won it, I also kind of felt, so what do we like? Do I go to the competitions to kind of win, or just go there to kind of hang out with all the people I know? And I kind of think for the next competitions, I'll probably be going more for just socializing and hanging out, because it's kind of like, well, how interesting is it to kind of keep winning the same thing, at least in my mind, But maybe I know there are these people that you amongst them actually like just keep winning Golden Demons. It's kind of funny. But I don't know. For me, it's like, oh, I won once. It's fine for me. Then I'll just go and hang out.
I think it's the case where it's kind of like I'm a big fan of football, so I'll make some comparisons with football. If you're a Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo, you want to be at this top level all the time to prove every year. But with sports, it's limited by your health or your youth. But with painting, you can be 80 years old and still be winning the Slayer Swords or the Best of Show on SMC or whatever. So I think this is one of the amazing things about this hobby and this community. The one thing you said, that everyone is encouraging everyone. Well, most of the people are, at least if they're not passes, and you have this great sense of a community, of a friendship, of you know, everyone is here to have fun, to enjoy themselves. And I think this is also really determined by the amount of the lack of limits in this hobby, because if you only have 15 years in sports, you are going to be very angry if you don't win this World Cup, because you only have like three, because they're every 4 years. So I think it's a wonderful thing. I really love the community for the most part, and I'm really happy you enjoy it as well. And you should. I think it's a very easy thing to enjoy the community if you're on the top of the community. I think you're one of the best sculptors in the world easily. So for you, it's probably very easy to enjoy because everyone wants to talk to you.
Yeah, I kind of have had mixed like I would say experiences with it. I don't know. I really, of course, it's really awesome that people want to work with you. I do have like a full full schedule for the next 1.5 years or something. So it's really cool. But it's there's also, I don't know if this is only, maybe you can let me know if it's not the case. But at least when you're a sculptor, this a lot of the work you do are seen as like a product in many ways. So as at least how I feel, that you create a sculpture just to kind of make some kind of art or something like that. And then the first thing that people want is like if they can buy it. I understand like that's what they want, a call that makes sense. So I don't really have anything issues with that. But people are also very quick to kind of like kind of trash it. Like if it's like a like, it's not like it's a piece of art. Oh, this guy, he made this. It's more like this product is crap, or it's really good or something. And it kind of keeps you, it kind of sours it a little bit. I remember the first sculpt I did, it was like I've never done this again because it's I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. But I tried Googling the name of the sculpt. I was like, oh, what did people say about it? And I remember I came to this German forum and everyone just trashing this this sculpt. So that was really not very encouraging because it was the first one. I was like, okay, I'm gonna get better, right? It's good to get feedback, but I don't know. Sometimes people, they just say like bad stuff just to kind of, I don't know what they're trying to do. Just kind of make some kind of statement. I don't know. So that's kind of the bad experiences I've had with sculpting. I don't know. Is it kind of similar in painting or is it different?
It is most definitely similar because, again, as I said before, I had a lot of bad experiences in the hobby, and even recently as well. And I thought, what is the point of you being negative? You're only making yourself look like a fool. For example, in 2018, I did this project for Golden Demon where my friend Raffaele Stumpo on Instagram, an Italian amazing sculptor, he has won like 20 Golden Demons as well back in the day. And he has sculpted this amazing Corn Demonkin Demon Prince for me for Golden Demon. And because of the shipping to where I lived at the time from Italy, I only have 4 days to paint the miniature for Golden Demon. And it's quite a big miniature. But I've managed to paint it, not to my best standard, but it got a bronze Golden Demon. And people started attacking me on the internet saying that, it's not a very good paint job and stuff like that, and it should have won. And I was just wondering, is it my fault that I won? Go to the judges. Why are you going to my profile and comment on under my picture and say it's not very good? I understand it's not the best paint job. If I would have 3 months, I would make it 10 times better. So I think there's a very toxic part to this hobby, but I think it's you can understand it, because if we all spend 200 hours on something and then only 3 things win in a competition and everyone wants to win, people will start to, oh, he's a friend of the judge, oh, he's, he paid the judge or whatever. That never has been said, but it is said by some football clubs or whatever. So I mean, there is this dark part of the community, but I think it only comes from many people spending a lot of time on something. And yeah, It's not ideal, but it's a lot better than other communities. So I think it's still pretty great.
Yeah,
And yeah.
I think overall the community is really good. It's just something I've noticed sometimes, but it's not really a big issue. And also just like statistically, I guess you would expect, let's say you have like 10,000 followers on Instagram. Of course, there's gonna be like 5 people who doesn't like whatever you post. Like it's just nature, right? Like I don't like to eat fish, and I know a lot of people love fish. It's just like I don't know. It's just my preference, right? So
I hate fish, so I get it. I
okay.
get it. Yeah, it's always very hard to ignore those comments because you're used to the good comments, and then there's one
Yeah.
that is saying this is awful, and you're only focusing on this thing, and it's
Yeah,
so
I know that.
silly because if you would think about the percentage, if you get, for example, if you do advertising and then you get 99.9% of clicks on your ad, for example, it's just insane level of engagement, and it's an amazing result. But if you get one single bad comment, so one view of the ad that wasn't clicked, you'll want to kill yourself sometimes. So
Yeah.
it's a very
Yeah.
interesting thing.
I do think that like it's kind of funny because I'm also a biologist, right? So I kind of like to sometimes think of. I just can't stop thinking about some of these traits. I've noticed a lot of painters are like these kind of people, or like not painters, but the people that are very good at painting or very good at anything, I guess, in life, are just usually people that really want to pursue like getting the getting the best product they can do, or whatever you want to call it, and like getting really hurt by these negative comments. I think that's like a just like inherent trait in these people, because it's like we really want to chase after not having to experience that or something. I don't know.
Yeah. At some point, also when you get a lot of good feedback, you start feeling, you start having this high feeling that, wow, this is amazing, and everyone thinks this is amazing. And then when this comment comes through, you're not only on this level where you like the miniature, so many people like, and then this person comes along, but you just have to, I think, enjoy your work. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And then everything else will come with this. Good results will come. Okay, so back to some of the questions I had. Do you ever see yourself going into Golden Demon? Because I know you've went you've created sculpts for people that are now displayed on World Model Expo, on Monty, and stuff like that. Do you ever plan to go to Golden Demon and paint your own miniatures, or have other amazing painters do it? And just before you answer, I've seen some of the past Golden Demon winners paint your sculpts. So I'm thinking, are we going to see this in Adepticon next year or in the UK?
I do think that I've done quite a lot of like Warhammer based sculpts as fan art, and I have like kind of collaborated with some of my friends and people I've met online. There's like nothing you love more when you're a sculptor to see your model well painted. So I love to send these models to these people, and I have spoken to some of the people I've done these sculpts for to kind of enter to different like Golden Demon competitions, maybe in the US or Europe. I don't know. So I think we will see at some point. I don't know exactly who, because I've done quite a lot of them. So I don't really like keep in touch with all of the people all the time. So there's like I think the first one I did of those Warhammer based fan arts was probably like a couple of years ago. So we had the Corona and all of that. So it may be like suddenly we just see a lot of them. I don't know. But,
Suddenly we will see the open competition at Golden Demon being just incredible. It was incredible 10 days ago at the UK Golden Demon, but I think if we have 10 custom sculpts, it'll be wonderful.
Yeah.
And also, I learned that you exist a couple of years ago by seeing some of your sculpts by different people, by not you, basically, by the painters I was following. And I was one of those people that asked if you can get one of your sculpts. And by the way, going back to this question that everyone asks you, I think so let's imagine that Picasso would live in the age of social media. If he would put out something online and everyone would want this, they would still understand that this is probably costing like $10 million and they're not able to afford it. So they wouldn't ask if they can afford this. So maybe considering that we have this different approach in miniature sculpting and painting, where you create this amazing bust or miniature and different people are able to buy it, I think it's the best example of people appreciating your work when they have to have it. They want to have a copy of it. So if you ever think that, oh, come on, they're asking if they can buy it, I think it's just the best compliment I could give you, for example, because
I see it as a positive thing as well. It is I don't really have anything against it. I think it's really nice to see when people are like enthusiastic about like, oh, this sculpt, and they really want to paint it. In many cases, I really do want to give them like the files or something so they can print it or something. But there's also like just the issue of, I know that on the internet you can find a lot of like Warhammer based 3D printing stuff just for free that people have made as fan art. But the problem for me is I'm also working professionally. I can't just go out and risk and publish something that I don't really have the copyright to. So that's like, and at least for me, I think it wouldn't be right for me to basically steal their art and profit off of it and distributing it. It's also illegal, right? So that's why you can't really just give it away to everyone. There's some protection of that in Denmark in regards to if it's like a single copy or something like that for yourself. So so you can do fan art. Obviously, fan art exists of everything, but it wouldn't be able to just distribute it on the internet and to everyone without probably facing some kind of consequences. I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't. But I don't really want to run that risk. And but also a lot of the sculpts I do are for collectors. So I'll be commissioned to do some kind of collaboration with maybe like some very good painter, and so there will only be one copy, just to the nature of that, right? So those I can obviously not distribute it either. So I think probably half of my work is collector work. So that's probably also why I don't see that much from I guess different companies, because a lot of it is just for collectors.
Sure. And again, this feeds nicely to my next question. Could you tell me a little bit more about your partnership with some amazing painters out there? I've noticed that you send the file or the physical copy of your miniature to some of the most recognized painters out there, and they're only available to those painters. And this is a very interesting thing I've seen, and I think I've only seen you do it. And my background is in advertising, so I would really, really appreciate something like this in advertising, because you build this great tension in the community that everyone wants to sculpt, but only 3 people can have it. So it's kind of like limited edition, but limited edition is not for just these 3 people. It's for everyone. You only have 3 copies or 500 copies if it's Games Workshop or whatever. So can you tell me a little bit more about this process where you chose some of the painters and only gave the miniatures to them?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It was it is kind of like an amalgamation of different things. I guess it started off actually just by, okay, I don't really have the copyright for this, but I can buy like by law I can make a few copies to my friends. I don't remember the exact number. The number was like 5 or something in Denmark you can do, and for like friends. So, and I write to a lot of the different painters. So it just started out by just sending to the people I know, and maybe just 1 copy or something like that, or 2 maybe. And that's just kind of how it started. And then I kind of realized it is kind of cool that we have something that is more unique, like there only exists one of them. It's one of the things that I really loved about marble sculpting is that you just have this one singular thing, and it does give it kind of more value because it is like unique, opposed to just kind of churning them out in the printer, right?
Sure.
One of the issues I always had with 3D sculpting is that it doesn't really have the same weight as like a physically produced piece of art, right? Because it does have this kind of feel that it can be mass produced in a way, which is also a strength in many ways, right?
It
So
is.
I think that's how it started. I think the first one I worked with was Ithami Alonso, if you know him, and
Sure.
I think we did the Witcher busters. That was kind of the first one I did it, and I kind of gave a few away to some random people, I think, and it was, and then I also gave one to Ithami. And I think it kind of started there, and I see a lot of people really love that kind of working with portraits. It's one of the things that I always love to do in oil painting, is portraits. So it kind of the skills from there kind of translated really well to sculpting. So I kind of had this idea that it would be really cool to make these kind of exclusive portrait sculpts. So I think most of the sculpts I did one for John Chan as well. He's kind of like a little underground god of painting, I think.
Yeah.
You do know him?
Of course.
He's
Yeah.
really good, but he just posts on his Facebook page or something like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. It's like private Facebook. But he's so good. Did the guy from Dune there, Muhadib? I don't remember his name. It's like from Dune, you know. Or that name. I don't hope I spoiled anything. That name will come later probably. Anyway, and then I worked with some other people. I did like Khan the Betrayer in kind of
Yeah.
collaboration with Banshee. He hasn't painted it yet, but see if he ever paints it.
I think everyone should shame him for this because when I went through your work before we had this conversation, I saw that you have your Karn pinned to your profile on Instagram. And I thought, yeah, this is one of your best sculpts and one of the best 3D sculpts I've ever seen. And then I saw that this was been done for Banshee. I kind of got this feeling. So from your comments, and then to not see it painted, it's a big shame. So everyone go to Banshee's profile and comment that he has to paint it ASAP.
Let's see. I don't want to shame him, so
No,
you know,
not shame him, but
he has
just say paint it.
Yeah. I'm sure it will look amazing when he's finished with it. So,
Yeah.
and then I think it did a few with Robert Karlsson. Is like a Swedish painter who's really good, and there's been a few others. I also sent one to Roman Lapat. He also did the Witcher bust, and there's been a lot of really good painters. It's really like a privilege to kind of see your stuff painted by some of the best people in the world, right? I also have to send you some stuff over after this, so we'll see if there's something I can find.
This is the main reason we are doing this.
Yeah, it's a pride.
No, I'm kidding, but it would be obviously a privilege to paint any of your busts or miniatures. So, and also I wanted to ask you about how you've learned to sculpt and digital and 3D, because I think it's a problematic thing for many traditional sculptors. And I talked to some of the like legends of the sculpting area of this art that aren't that known. For example, I went to Warhammer World a couple of months ago and I met Ali Morrison, one of the probably, if not the oldest, not oldest, but the longest time employed in GW. He has been sculpting for them for like 40 years or something. So I asked him, how did you make this transition from 30 plus years of sculpting traditionally to sculpting with a computer? And he's an older gentleman as well, and he said no problem, like a couple of weeks and I was fine with it. So I wanted to ask you if it was easy for you. How did you learn it? Did you have some lessons from someone and stuff like that?
I learned it by myself. It was there's actually a lot of material available on YouTube if you want to learn it, or like just the different guides on the internet. And there's a high it's like a steep learning curve in the beginning, at least, because let's say you don't know anything about sculpting and you also have to learn about the software. So that's where I think the issue starts for a lot of people, is they don't know how to sculpt and they don't know how to even work in this environment. So the most common like industry standard software that we use is like ZBrush.
Sure.
There's some other, like there's like the free alternative is Blender, but I don't feel it really got the full amount of tools that you kind of need to really make a miniature from start to ending, if it really has to be like some high level stuff. But the thing with ZBrush is it is relatively easy to use, but there are some things that are just so annoying about the software that a lot of people are just turned off by it. And then additionally, while dealing with the software, they also kind of have to figure out how do I do this anatomy thing and stuff like that. And I think for a lot of people, they just kind of quit and maybe go back to clay sculpting. But something like the sculptor you mentioned, if he's already proficient in sculpting, I don't think it would be like a big issue doing digital sculpting. Just learning ZBrush, it's not that difficult. It could be learned in a couple of weeks if someone is just persistent. And I guess if he's working with it, it's not an issue just spending every day, like at work or something.
Sure.
Which kind of leads to the second issue. I do also teach at Patreon. I probably have like 25, 30 hours of like tutorials there on how to sculpt from beginning to basically end. I do like a miniature from start to finish. I don't post like every week, like, you know, there's a lot of people that make these kind of tutorials and they post like, oh, how to make gold in MM, how to make silver in MM, or how to make bronze in MM. I don't do that. I just, okay, this is how you do anatomy, and that's my video. So that's, I'm not gonna update it. I'm not gonna, maybe if I have something I need to like reiterate, I'll make like a 5-minute like explanation of it, but I don't really do much more than that. But my point of that was that I've been teaching a lot of people on Patreon throughout the last couple of years, and I have noticed that a lot of people, they kind of have, and this is not exclusive to sculpting or painting or anything like that, it's just exclusive to, or it's just something that happens with every kind of hobby, that people really want to learn this thing, but they're not really willing to spend the amount of time that is necessary.
Yeah.
So the people that I teach like every week, 1.5 hours every week, and some of them they progress so fast because in in between sessions they'll be sculpting a lot and kind of trying things out. And on the other hand, I have people that just like they almost never progress because they don't sculpt in between the sessions, which makes it like a very slow progression, obviously. Because let's say you sculpt 1.5 hours 4 times a month, that's like 6 hours. And then that's what I could do in one day if I'm just sculpting at work, right? So you're never gonna catch up with those kind of really good sculptors in that way, and you're probably not even gonna get like good enough to do like decent stuff. So yeah, I guess that's the answer to that.
Sure. How long would you say a average sculpt takes for you?
I think it varies a lot. I guess all sculptors have something their weak areas and their strengths. So I was always drawn to like female anatomy. I don't know if it's just a result of my biology, but it's just that's just something that was always like I was always drawn to. I just found it very beautiful. So if I have to do like a sculpt of a woman or something, that can be like very fast, especially if the anatomy is like a main component of the sculpt. It can take maybe like, I don't know, 12 to 20 hours or something like that. And that's like 2-3 working days or something like that. But that's like a very quick, just anatomy based thing. Could also be much faster, depends on the complexity. But let's say you have to do a sculpt with a lot of hard surface stuff. And hard surface, that would mean anything that's kind of manufactured, like armor or something that's basically like could only be produced by like a robot or something like that. Perfect surfaces and stuff like that. Well, then you're basically going into a completely other type of sculpting, depending on your method. So to tackle hard surface sculpting, you can either just kind of sculpt it. And I know it kind of seems obvious. You can kind of just sculpt it, try your best in the software to kind of add mass, retract mass, and kind of smooth it, and basically very close to what you would do in physical sculpting. But there's also another method, which is just kind of playing around the individual polygons, basically. And that takes a much more time because you're not really sculpting things, you're dragging around polygons to create like flat surfaces, and that can be very time consuming. But that's kind of the only way to get like that perfect result. Or not the only way, but it's like I would say the most common way to get like that perfect look, and that takes a long time. And for me, that could, like, if I have to do like a heavily armored knight or something like that, it could easily take like 100 hours or something like that.
Yeah, it's probably kind of similar to painting. If you have a simpler surface, it takes less time usually. If you have a very complicated surface, it's going to take 100 hours, as you say. That's very interesting, actually, because I thought, if you do a sculpt that is maybe more complicated but has simpler surfaces, it'll take a little bit less time. But I think it depends on every single concept, every single commission and stuff like that.
Yeah, and also from person to person. For me, the hard surface sculpting is something that takes a lot of time, but I've seen other people just kind of just rush through it. They're like so quick, they know all the tricks in the book. And especially that hard surface sculpting is like, if you know all the different tools in the software, you can really get through it quickly. But that's like, you're almost an engineer at that point. It's like almost not sculpting. It's kind of funny. So, but I do like it. So yeah, but it takes time.
As every good thing in life, it takes time. So is sculpting your full-time job, or do you do anything else on the side? Well, not on the side. Do you do sculpting on the side, or is it your main job nowadays?
It's my main job. It's the only thing I do. So it's just sculpting.
That's
But
great.
that said is like, you have to, I don't know if everyone has to, but for me, it's like I do a lot of different kind of services. So it could be presentation. So that would be when you have a 3D model in ZBrush, it will basically not look very good as the preview that you're looking at is like at low resolution, more or less. It's like an easy, simple explanation for it. But you have to use separate software to basically represent the model as good as possible. And usually companies will want to of course sell as many models as possible. So they want to present it as well as they can. So I'll do a lot of that as well, doing professional looking renders. I did all the renders for the Squidma Kickstarter as well. And I'll also do a lot of cuttings, which is basically when you have a 3D model, it will not basically come like in different parts just automatically. Someone has to basically manually go in and merge the different things and cut the different parts and put in these keys. And these keys are basically what make them kind of interlock and be a lot easier to kind of assemble. If you don't have those keys, you can still put things together, but it's going to be really annoying to make it fit really well. And that's also like a process in of itself. Especially like, it's kind of funny when we see those kind of video I did with Squidma, like something like that. It's I can't really judge something on just how it looks, because it's also like, can you even print this at this point? And can you even produce it in any way, right? So a lot of these I've worked with, I've done these making stuff castable for so many different companies. And I see a lot, I receive so many different files from different sculptors, and you just find all these issues, like there's small holes inside of them, and like they didn't see like this thing is kind of overlapping, so you kind of have to fix that, so you can't cut it in two and stuff like that. So it's more than just sculpting, it's also like the technical perspective of it that you can kind of give as a service. So that's also a part of my job. And then there's also teaching, which I also do teach maybe like 10, 12 people or something on Patreon, like weekly or bi-weekly or monthly. So that's also part of the income. So like having all of those different options is what kind of makes up my, I guess, my monthly payment. That kind of makes it possible, right?
Very interesting. And one of the more general questions I have, and I think I will ask this almost every person I talk to here, is, do you like the current state of the hobby? We have been talking about, the past, where the community wasn't that great. It was good, but it wasn't that great, probably because we didn't have the social media. Now we have the social media. We have all of the companies out there. Not only Games Workshop, we have Karel Rudik and many other producers of miniatures. So, do you like the current state of things?
I think it's pretty good as it is. It's I guess it's a little different depending on which world you live in. I know it's kind of a weird thing to say, but I guess that the broad like the community, the miniature community overall, I would say like 99%, I guess, like 95%, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm off. I don't know. I'm just saying some numbers here. But I guess those are people that exclusively paint like Warhammer related models, obviously, because Games Workshop is a huge company and the company that got most people into it, right, in the beginning. And I think it's very cool to see more people painting miniatures from other small companies. So there are many different companies that make miniatures. It's not only Games Workshop. I know it's kind of funny because some people, they do think that it's only Games Workshop that makes miniatures. I do remember this. There was a day I asked my friend, and I remember so clearly. I asked him, "Is there miniatures that are not made by Games Workshop?" I literally asked him that, and it's kind of ironic. I'm sitting here and making miniatures now, but it's cool seeing the community kind of being more open to buying these alternative miniatures, also on Kickstarter and stuff like that. So I think that's positive, and if it continues like that, I think it would be really cool, and I would like that development.
I think one of the questions I have for myself and for all of the people that are very into this hobby, they have a business or work with someone that has a business in this community, in this hobby, is would you like to see this hobby 10 times bigger, where we have not hundreds of amazing painters and sculptors or 1,000, but tens of thousands of amazing sculptors? So one of the things I'm always wondering about is why wouldn't GW, for example, because they're the biggest player out there with the biggest reach and stuff like that, why would they not do a film like Marvel? Why would they not cast Henry Cavill and create, this amazing movie for millions of people? And sometimes I think maybe because they don't want this hobby to grow as big, because imagine if they would do something like Lord of the Rings that changed the world of cinema, of the digital animated things and the cinema and stuff like that. This would change the community as well, because in 10 years' time, we would have probably 10 times more amazing painters and sculptors. So would you like to see this community grow exponentially to Marvel-like community where you have tens of millions of people invested into it?
It's a difficult question, because in many ways, the more money in the hobby, the better for the developers, I guess, the artists, and we would also be able to make better products because we'd be paid better, of course. So that's a positive aspect. But there's also a thing with the community. It kind of feels like a homely small community of people. Like even like the bigger groups maybe have like 50,000 people. I know that sounds like a lot of people, but it's still at the point where you can post something and you can get a genuine response by like some people, and it's not like in the millions where you just get flooded, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what would happen if we were like millions of people like in these groups, and it was just you would just never be able to get an answer of anything, because there would be so much I don't want to call it crap, but so much stuff that's not really that noticeable that people would just not pay attention and actually give like feedback or something like that. So yeah, it's difficult to say. I don't really know. I don't know about Games Workshop if they wouldn't like to. I think they would love the hobby to be bigger. I don't know it, but Games Workshop is like a little weird. I don't know if you remember this, but I think like at the before the fall of Warhammer Fantasy Battles, Games Workshop didn't have like social media and stuff like that. They didn't like even have like a functioning website almost. It was so bad. Yeah. And they had like thousands of models that were like never sold, or like really bad quality, like a lot of metal models. And this is like only like, I guess like 6-7 years ago. And they had like this really big shift with Age of Sigmar, and they started doing like these community posts. They got like the community side and all of that. So I think that has something that has really like contributed to the growth of the hobby, that they have been much more like reaching out to people. So maybe it's just like a natural progression that maybe at some point they'll be ready to make the movie. But I don't really think like if like 5-6 years ago or 7 years ago they were like having troubles just making like an Instagram or something like that. I don't know if they're ready to do that yet, but maybe, I don't know.
Well, they obviously do some great work nowadays, and they've created amazing miniatures for decades, and we are almost all of us are in this hobby because of them. Some people tend to, after many years, start hating them because of some of the political stuff that is happening on the backdrop. But still, the miniatures always united everyone, and I started because of my brother that went into Warhammer as well. You have this old brother that helped you with this as well. So, but yeah, let's not focus too much on them. I think there's a lot of amazing players out there on this market, and that's just amazing to see. I recently thought that you can have every miniature you ever wanted from every artwork you ever liked in like 10 years. So if there's enough of people that commission, for example, Mark Gibbons. Mark Gibbons was one of the concept artists for Games Workshop. He has painted many beautiful images for them, and I'm a big fan of his. And I would like to have every miniature he has ever put on canvas, because the aesthetic is amazing. He has done some amazing Space Wolves, and I'm a big Space Wolf fan. So it's just amazing that with 3D sculpting we have this almost unlimited scope for amazing projects. So that's pretty great about this community nowadays. I think that wasn't available, as you say, a couple of years ago. We have been limited.
And also the rise of 3D printers,
I
think, has really contributed. That okay, you may not have a 3D printer, but at least probably one of your friends or someone in the local community probably has a pretty good 3D printer that you can get you can buy some STL files online, and you can start printing in at a pretty good quality. And some of the printers you can get now, they're doing stuff that is like you couldn't really distinguish it between like a Warhammer model or like a printed model. It's really good, and they like it something at like an affordable price. So I think that has also made it like we're seeing a lot more of just like independent freelance sculptors just releasing stuff on Patreon or selling them individually on whatever website. Yeah, I think that has also kind of broadened that kind of part of the community a little bit. You have the whole community of like 3D printing guys that their hobby is literally just 3D printing stuff and seeing how well they can 3D print it. So yeah, it will be interesting to see where it goes. I would love to see from Games Workshop maybe like bigger scale miniatures. That would be really cool, I think.
That's exactly what I wanted to say, is probably considering what we've seen before from Games Workshop. When they see that's an area that is related to our hobby, is developed enough by other people, they can get into it to like a set fundamental area, and then they can start investing in it. I think it would be amazing to see. Imagine if we could see a couple of, as you say, big scale miniatures. They did this before, like they did busts and big scale miniatures by Forge Wall, but it would be very nice to see some plastic miniatures as well, where they're mass produced. I think there's a big market for this. Not only the people that paint for competition, it's just general people who want to paint something bigger and just display it on their shelf. Like I personally hate Funko Pops, the big headed thingies.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry if everyone likes them and I'm the only person that hates them. But, well, not hate them, but I'm not a big fan. But these are things that you display on your shelf. And this is something you just buy to just have it, not to play with it. And if there is a market for these, there sure is a market for busts and bigger scale miniatures. So hopefully we will see that in the future, and hopefully it won't be a big conflict with the smaller producers as well, because you want to see them thrive, I think, as well. But yeah, it's interesting times ahead, I would say. I also wanted to ask you about this huge part of this hobby, gaming. As I said before, I was gaming before. I was terrible at it, so I stuck to painting. Do you still play games? Have you played before a lot? Do you have an army? Stuff like that.
I did have a couple of armies. Actually, I had a Dark Elder army, like a Space Marine army, stuff like that. But it's not really something I collect that much anymore. You can imagine, like, you're working with miniatures like 8 hours every day.
Yeah.
Throughout 8 or 9 hours every day, you kind of, when it comes to like your free time, you maybe want to do something else. That's like the point it's come to for me. Like sometimes I do kind of still hobby sculpt. I do that quite a lot still. But I don't really have an army. I do have a Warcry team or two, I think. I don't remember. I think I have one of the Stormcast Eternals. The chunky guys. I don't know what they're called. The big ones with the hammers. The new ones. They're really cool. Yeah, so locally, I just touched upon, we have this small community club where a lot of painters go, and a lot of us, we paint for competitions. A lot of them are very good painters that won like in the Golden Demons and stuff like that. Well, Expo, Montes and Savino, all of those things, and none of us are really keen on painting a whole army. It's just too much. So we started painting up Warcry teams. So that's what we've been playing a little. We haven't played in a while, but I think we're gonna play it by the end of the month. So still something we're doing a little. What about you? Do you actually have an army or something like
that? I have a very small army of painted Space Wolves. I'm trying to get at least like 1,000 points worth of miniatures. I'm probably around 500, because for me, the most fun part about painting is having a finished miniature that can place at a competition. So I've kind of developed this obsessive perfectionism where if something isn't painted to my best level, to my best ability, I feel bad. So when I have to paint something to a tabletop standard, it's just so draining for me. It's awful, and I hate it. So I either do it badly quickly, or I spend 7 days on a single miniature for a squad that is for gaming, which is not ideal as well. So
yeah.
I only have a couple of miniatures painted, like 20 maybe. But maybe in the future, as you say, you have something by the end of the month. Maybe I'll have something in like 2 years, and then we can see where it leads. But it's a nice part of the hobby. If you can enjoy it, it's very cool.
Yeah, I think so.
And I wanted to ask you, because as I said before in some of the interviews that I've done, miniature painting isn't that enjoyable for me. And I think it's a big shock for everyone, because I think most of the community really enjoys painting, and I hate it. I really love the final effect. I work for the final effect. So I only have this couple of moments in the year where, I paint like 10 miniatures a year. So I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, that's good. And then I go to a competition and I get 2 days of enjoyment, and that's all. Yeah. So do you enjoy the day-to-day working on sculptures, or do you only enjoy the final effect like me?
I don't know. I think I'm a little in between. It is... What you describe is kind of like almost like a bodybuilder or something like that. Is like so draining during that daily workout, and then when you go to the podium and you win that Mr. Olympian or whatever it's called, that's the nice moment, right? That's where it all pays off. Yeah, I think it depends what I'm working on. Like, so of course, when you work professionally, sometimes there will be projects that are just not really what you like. Like I have the privilege now that I don't have to accept those things anymore, so it's not really a problem that much anymore. But there will still be things that I'm like really want to work on. So like if I have a a private thing I'm working on for myself. I will really want to work on that, but I have to work, so I'll have to do this other thing that is totally unrelated, and I'm not in the mood for doing like fairies or something weird like that. And then it kind of feels like, okay, I just gotta get through this, and it's like really not funny or interesting or anything. It's just boring, but it pays the bills, right? So I think it depends on the situation for me.
Sure, that's fair enough. I think one of the things that many people do nowadays is open their own companies and create their own miniatures. And I can obviously, see you do work for Karel Rudik, for different companies, for private commissions. And would you ever like to open your own company, Thorbjørn company, creating miniatures, and would you like to sell them yourself? Or are you comfortable nowadays with just, putting out the work and making sure that you do the amazing sculpting and someone else does the packaging, the casting and sending and stuff like that?
It's interesting you ask. So, I do kind of have a company now. It's just for sculpting stuff, but I would like to kind of diversify my income, like by different types. So that's also why I don't only do sculpting, I also do the render. So I kind of have different skill sets, in case something went bad in some area, right? So I would like to kind of diversify a little bit and start selling my own stuff. And I have kind of spoken to some friends, like good painters, that we can kind of maybe collaborate or something like that. So that's probably something that will be coming in the future, probably in maybe next year, something like that.
That's great.
I did try starting my own Kickstarter at some point, and it did really well actually. But it's such a pain in the ass to send packages, and it was right at the peak of Corona. So there were so many packages that were lost, and things that got back like 1 year later, and things that said they were delivered, the people said they didn't get it, and that was like too much stress for like 1.5 years after that. That I'm just like, okay, I'm out. I'm not gonna do that anymore. So I think if I was gonna start something myself, and I have actually also spoken to some other people I know, other companies, they would do the packaging and all of that for me, and I would just do the sculpting. And of course, it would be my website and all of that, but I wouldn't really do any of that physical stuff.
Sure, that's again very fair answer, and I think it's a main concern for people that you do this Kickstarter, it goes well, but then you have like 4,000 orders you have to send out. That's 4,000 addresses in different countries, and 4,000 packages you have to pack and send out and stuff like that. So it's complicated, but I think when you have this path, one path is working in the office and doing the job you hate, or in a different area and doing the work you hate, or sending 4,000 of your miniatures that you've sculpted and people liked enough to pay you like 50 euros per copy. It's pretty, it's a pretty easy choice at some point. But for you, you have this choice of working with a different company that'll do everything for you, which is pretty great.
Yeah.
And also, I wanted to ask you if you feel like your sculpting skills are pure talent, or have you put a lot of work and time into it? It can be both, but what do you feel is more the case?
I think it's like, I literally think about how to answer that, because I have some answers that are like X-rated. No, they're not. Like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. I think that people, like, just biologically speaking, people are like inclined, or they have like traits that would make them better at certain things than other people. So I'm like 175 centimeters tall. Like, I'm not a tall person, right? I'm never gonna be in the NBA. I'm never gonna be like dunking, stuff like that. It's just not possible, right?
Well, that's a good average height. It's fine.
Yeah,
I'm the same,
fine.
I think so.
Okay. Okay, so that's probably all right. But so there are things that would probably, I think I was probably pretty good from a starting point, but I also did have a little bit of experience in miniature painting and oil painting. And I think all of those things, it's all visual arts in the end. So if you can see, if you know how a face should look like when drawing it, it's not really different than when sculpting it. It's the same thing. You can still see if the face looks wrong or right. In a lot of the cases, people are not really able to identify what it is that looks wrong. So I think that's kind of what makes the big difference. But of course, there's also like the physical action of actually sculpting the thing. And even if it's just on like a kind of tablet, I've still seen a lot of people actually really struggling with kind of using it. I don't know if it was just talent. I think it's also a lot of work. So I did, like, when I was just doing it as a hobby in the beginning, I was probably sculpting 4 hours a day or something like that, still every day for like a couple of years. So it's still a lot of hours. And now I do it like 8 hours every day. So it's still like thousands of hours each year, right? And if you just sculpt 1.5 hour like every week, like I'll sculpt that amount in a week that another person do like in a year, right? So
Yeah,
I kind of think that's. I don't know. What about you? Did you was it always like? Did it just come easy to you, or?
no. It was. I think of myself as a. There are artists and there are people that forge their good painting or their good skills. I had to put a lot of work to everything. I have to think about things when I paint, and I think all of the people from Spain, France, Poland, those amazing places where you get 100 amazing painters, they know where to put everything, and I have to think about it. So I'm not. Yeah. I don't have this artistic talent, which, for example, my brother has, because he used to be an amazing sculptor, and he would paint amazing drawings and everything since he was a little kid. And I still cannot draw, and I'm 26. So I would say it was just a lot of hard work for me. But there's always someone a lot better than you, or at least even if you have 5 Slayer swords, there's someone better, so you can always become better. But it's interesting to hear that it's a mix for you, and that's what I thought as well.
Yeah,
I think when you're someone like me that isn't talented at all, you can spot when someone is talented and also put the work into it, the time, and I can definitely see it in your work. So it's very cool. It's very nice that you put the work in.
Yeah, I think you can being talented is a very nice thing, but it's just never enough on its own, I think. So I see a lot of people that have so much talent but just don't put in the time.
Yeah.
But in reverse, I also had some people that I teach, and I've taught for like 2 years now, and they work very hard. Like they sculpt more than me, some of these people. It's insane how much they sculpt, and they just never really it's not in the intuitive for them, I think. Like, so something that I was always drawn to, that sculpting the female figure. And I actually work with a lot of like models as well. I book sessions with them, and I find out if I have like a miniature, I know it's coming up. It's like in a specific pose. I'll book a time with them, or they'll send me the pose, the pictures from every angle. But it was always like an intuitive thing for me. I remember even when I did the first sculpt, I could just see, like, without references, I was just like, okay, this is how it's gonna look, and it was just like easy from the beginning. But then sculpting like men, it was like very difficult for me. Like it sounds stupid. It sounds like it should be kind of the same, but it was just like my men would always look very feminine in a way, because I was kind of not really doing the features correctly. So that's something I had to work very hard on to do like male characters. So I guess maybe there's also like areas where people are just like more talented in. I don't know. It's like I guess like NMM, like non-metallic metal. I feel like some people are like the best at painting skin, and then you see the non-metallic metal, and it's just like it just don't see like why is it you're so bad at this? But maybe it's just I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Or the other way around. They're like these NMM gods. I don't know.
That is very true, and sometimes it's very disappointing when you see an amazing painter and you can see that they're amazing at 70% of what they're doing, and then the 30% is lacking, and you think, well, you're this talented, incredible painter, just put some more time into this. But overall, I think everyone is working on improving everything in the competitive part of the miniature painting, or even if you're not competing, you still enjoy painting to a good standard. You want to improve yourself, just to make sure that every time you paint something, you finish a project or sculpt something, you do the best you can do. That's always a good thing, I feel.
Yeah.
Now I have this more philosophical, theoretical question. If you would have unlimited funds and you wouldn't have to work a single day more in your life, what would you do? Would you still sculpt? Would you, I don't know, buy a football club? I would buy a football club and run it. What would you do?
I think I actually don't spend a lot of money. Like as most of money I probably spend on food. So I don't know. It's kind of funny. I don't really buy a lot of expensive stuff. Or maybe I buy like very good food and that's expensive, but it's not really much other. So I wouldn't really probably buy a house or something like that. But if I had unlimited funds, I don't know, I would still sculpt. I'm sure of that. And I think I would sculpt like stuff that I would really like to sculpt in really big projects. So something I always really admired in some of these classical sculptures is like they have like these giant sculpts. Like you'll see like the Pieta from Michelangelo, like the what's called Maria holding like Jesus or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just like this masterpiece, right? And the guy just spent like a year or something on it, and it's just like, I want to do that, but it's not possible. Like at the moment when you're also working professionally, it's like, it's one of the difficulties is when you need to churn out these things. Like I need to make like 2 to 4 sculpts every month. I can't just spend a year on a sculpt anymore. It's not a hobby anymore. I need to get a monthly income. So I would probably try to pursue those much more ambitious projects.
Sure. That's a very noble thing, I think. That's probably also one of the things I would do as well. So I can relate. If I would have unlimited funds, I would buy the football club, I would run it, but I would still probably want to create something for painting competitions where I would invest like $2,000-3,000 into something that is just the best piece ever, or try to make something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have a couple more general questions. I hope that's fine with you.
Yeah.
I feel like many of those podcasts and interviews that are done with miniature painters, not to talk them down because I think they're amazing and it's great that we have them, but it would also be very nice to sometimes have a couple more general questions. So that's what I want to introduce. Or maybe someone is doing it, but I haven't seen it done. So what is your biggest fear in life?
I don't know. I think currently, of course, it would be losing my family or something like that, right? But if we look at like outside, like the normal fears that people have of dying and stuff like that, it would probably be, I think if you become like a pop star or something like that, let's say, we all know it's not gonna last forever, right? And at least with art, it's not really limited by age. Like it's not like anyone is buying my sculpts because I'm a handsome guy or something like that, right? No one cares about that, so I don't really have that problem.
That also helps, I'm sure.
Yeah, it probably does, but I don't think I've ever posted a picture of myself on Instagram. But the thing is, I think I do worry about, okay, will this be sustainable forever? And I do have a master's in biotechnology, but the thing is, that's a very rapidly moving field. It's like in 10 years, the skill set I have now will probably already be somewhat outdated if I haven't stayed on top. Of course I could do things, but it wouldn't be like cutting edge research or something. And I like to always try and be the best in whatever I kind of put my mind to. So if it was miniatures, I would be the best miniature thing or something. That's my aim, right? So if I was in research, I would probably also try to be the best in that field. And I do worry if let's say I sculpt for like 7 years and for some reason people are not interested in buying miniatures anymore. It was a fad, all of it, and we're all stupid for doing it. I don't know. And then I have to find another job, right? Then that would probably be a big fear right now, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's
What?
a pretty normal thing. I think when you're not working in something like medicine or law, which exists since forever and will exist forever, probably you can worry about things. So I understand.
Yeah. You have any fears?
Yeah, I have many fears.
Fearless.
One of them is I'm afraid of spiders. So I hate spiders, and I live in the UK where there's a lot of spiders. It's not Australia, but you still have a lot of them in here. But if you would have to be more serious and talk about things like this, I would also be losing your family and stuff like that. But I as you diverted rightfully to things more related to the interview, not everyone probably fears of losing their family or dying or whatever. So it's a nice answer that you have produced in here. And what do you do in your free time?
I honestly don't do much. I just started playing Dungeons and Dragons, actually. So
Nice.
I tried a little bit before the Corona crisis, or the coof. But the thing is that everything shut down, so I had to stop almost after 1 or 2 sessions. But then I kind of picked it up a little again, and with my wife as well. And I kind of feel like I have to sculpt my own character now. That's probably the hobby that's coming up a little bit. It's kind of, I have been a little bit in limbo for a while because I went from sculpting being the hobby to like being the work, and you kind of, at some point you just don't want to sculpt more in a day. Like sometimes I do sculpt afterwards, but it's just too much. And also you're sitting down all day. It's just it's very stationary. Your back will hurt at some point if you sit there all day. So tried skateboarding for a while. It's also been fine, but I really feel like I need like a more a nerdy hobby again. So I hope the Dungeons and Dragons things will be all right, but otherwise I'll have to explore a little bit more.
Sure. Do you listen to music in your free time? Is there any genre of music you enjoy a lot?
Yeah, I used to play guitar for many years, like 15 years, and it was I was as invested in that as I was in sculpting, but probably more because I did it for much more time. And I was also, I think I would, like, my own judgment would be that I was pretty good at that as well. So I don't know, maybe it was the same as sculpting, I don't know, but probably not. There's many more people playing guitar than sculpting, so you really have to be like extreme freak of nature to really stand out there. But I kind of was similar to sculpting in the way that I wanted to push the difficulty. So I was kind of pushed to genres that were like a bit more obscure, I guess, like progressive metal and like progressive jazz and stuff like that, just because that was, well, that's kind of where things starts to get even more difficult when you're playing, right? You want to kind of push the boundary. It's almost not being an art anymore. It's just kind of being a technical show off or something like that. I don't know. So, but from that era, I still do kind of listen to a lot of progressive metal. But also do listen to stuff that just makes me a little bit nostalgic, stuff from when I was growing up, like early 2000s or something like that, like the early Slipknot albums and like Korn and stuff like that. Like stuff that is like, these guys don't maybe do that make that much music anymore, but it kind of makes me a little nostalgic listening to that nowadays. I think that's kind of the stuff I'm listening to.
Okay. Same thing about movies. Do you watch any movies? Do you enjoy watching movies? Do you watch any series? Anything stands out to you? And the next question will be about the Rings of Power. So.
Oh no! Don't ask me about that. I'm gonna be crucified. No. Well, I actually really I do like watching a very good movie. So I'll only watch like things I think is very good, because I hate when I've spent 2 hours like watching a movie and it turns out it was a bad movie, because it feels like I could have done something productive in this time. I just wasted this amount of time. I don't know who said this, but it was like a podcast at some time with some guy saying like, okay, well, think of your time as you could have been paid in this amount of time. How much is 1 hour of your time worth? And that's how much I wasted on those 2 hours. So I really hate like watching a movie that's bad. And the same for series. I'll watch like 2 episodes, and if it's bad, I'll just not continue with it. So that's a really bad thing for my wife, because she just loves to consume these movies and series. It doesn't really matter what it is. She just loves to watch them. But it does mean that, I do watch like House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones. I love those series. I did finish Game of Thrones, even though I think the last few episodes were a little lackluster. It's at least not the outcome I would have loved to see, but it was still all right. And I also watch House of the Dragon now. I think that's very good. And yeah, I think I like watching older movies and series, because there's a huge like catalog of good stuff, but it's just a little older. Like I feel like there's a lot of Marvel stuff just being churned out now, and you just kind of know what it's gonna be about and what it's gonna end with, and you can just foresee everything, right? So I don't really like watching those things. So yeah.
Sure. Well, let's avoid the question about Rings of Power for now.
You can ask it. It's fine.
Are you a Tolkien fan? Do you like Lord of the Rings as well? Did you watch it? Do you know what it is, basically?
Yeah. I'm a fan of Tolkien. I wouldn't call myself a big fan, because it's not like something I spent all day thinking about, but it is something I'm listening to lore videos, and I did read the Silmarillion and the trilogy. But so I would, of course, so I have invested some time into it, but I'm not a huge fan. I love the movies. I think they're very good. I think the Hobbit movies were I think they're all right, but I think it seems like they're a little long, maybe. I don't know. And for Rings of Power, I don't want to say anything bad about it, because people are getting so political about it, I see. So I don't really like to be very political, because I really don't care about it. But I tried to watch it and I fell asleep many times. So I didn't continue with it. It was not for any of the political reasons. I just tried to watch it and I keep falling asleep when I tried to watch it. So I went back to House of the Dragon. So I don't know. Maybe if people say it's good, I'll try and pick it up again. I don't know. I'll see for when it's done.
Well, I think most of the critics of this series are not because of, inclusivity and stuff like that, or showing women as more of the strong characters. I think it's just lacking in interesting things. It's harder to develop a relationship with the character if the character is not built properly. In Lord of the Rings, for example, just the simplest example, I would say, you fall in love with the hobbits. You're not the biggest of the creatures of the Middle Earth, but they are the first one to run to towards Mount Doom to fight the orcs. They're the first to try to defend their friends, to be heroic. And in Rings of Power, whatever it is, you have these guys that are probably hobbits in the future, but these guys, well, in the past, but they will be hobbits in the future, and they want to leave this poor guy that broke his leg, which is it's harder to feel this great relationship with it. I think it's a great thing that it's happening, and hopefully, just like with Marvel, these guys will just listen more to their audience, because it's also very similar to what Games Workshop has. They have this extremely passionate, and not only Games Workshop, the miniature painting community in general. We have this extremely passionate community of people that tell you what they want. Just do what they want, and you will make
Yeah.
money, and everyone will be happy.
Yeah.
So I think there's great potential for it. I struggle with it as well, as you said. You fall asleep. I sometimes struggle with it as well, but hopefully I'm very hopeful that will be better in the future, because I think most of us are Tolkien fans, so it would be very nice.
Yeah, I think also like just touching upon that, I just don't find it that interesting to see like a perfect character. I like to see when like the characters are succeeding despite of the struggle, or they just keep pushing on like the hobbits did. Like it wasn't easy to get to the mountain, but nonetheless they had to overcome their fears and everything, all of that. And of course they had flaws, but they overcame them in the end, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the series I see coming out now, I actually do like that there's like more women in the protagonist roles and stuff like that. I think it's really cool to see. Like one of my favorite movies was like Alien, with the
Oh yeah.
I don't remember the name of the actress, but the protagonist is, well, she does like she has the struggles that you'd expect from the character, but she overcomes them in the end, and I think that's what's so powerful about it. And I'd like to see that in like in newer movies. That I think is great with all these new people we bring into the frame, but it would be cool if they were more like human in the way that they also had flaws, and they had all the same struggles that other people have, and were just not perfect characters. And I kind of got a little bit of that feel when I saw Rings of Power from the Galadriel. So I don't know. Maybe I have only seen 2 episodes, so I can't really be the judge of any of that, right? So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say. And you said, I think you mentioned you live in Denmark, and you're from Denmark. What city do you live in?
I live in the capital, which is Copenhagen.
Very nice. Do you like your city?
Yeah, I think it's a great city. I really love it. Like I grew up on the countryside, so it was not really. I had always had like these nerdy hobbies, and there was not really a community for it. But moving to the capital when I had to study at university, it was like a whole new world to open up, and whatever niche you have, you'll find someone who's equally as interested in it. And I think that's what's great when living in a big city, right? So I think I'm really happy to live in the country that I live in. So yeah.
Very nice. Now, if you would have to describe yourself in one word, again, this is a more personal thing, what would that word be?
One word? I don't know. Like maybe creative or forgetful. One of those. I forget a lot of things, but I also like to be creative. But I kind of forget. I get lost in that sometimes.
Well, yeah, considering that you create many things, you would think that you're both creative and you can forget about things when you create so many things. Sure. Now, going back to your sculpting, how much is one sculpt if someone wants to commission you?
Well, it's still really difficult to say, and I don't really like saying the prices out. I did say it in the Squidma video, but it was also, you have to take into account, it was like a 40-minute interview or something that was 40-50 minute that was cut down, so it kind of fits it's not like a long boring thing, right? So I think I also said that in that interview originally, but it's like it depends a lot on the company, of course, because there are people that I know is going to want like 30 iterations, right? And that's completely fine if that's what they wanted, but it's just gonna cost more. And I'll have experience with different people that is gonna kind of determine that. Some people are just know every first take on everything is just fine, so it's gonna be a little cheaper for them because I know they're not gonna take up that much time. But generally, it can range between 600 to 1,500, 2,000 euro. It depends a lot on the complexity and the size. So some of my biggest sculptures would probably be 15 to 2,000 euro, and on average it would probably be 1,000. And it's not only the size, but it's also like I told you about the hard surface stuff. It takes more time. So if I see an armored guy, it's just gonna cost more. It could cost like maybe 1,100, 1,200 euro for like an armored knight or something like that. 1,000, I don't know. Depends on the there's a lot of factors. Also the scale, which is like how is it like Warhammer size? There can't be that many details there, so it's gonna take less time to sculpt. Then it's gonna make it cheaper. So an armored guy as a 32 millimeter Warhammer scale could be like, let's say 700 euro or something like that. But in 75 millimeter, it could be 1,100 euro. I don't know. So it's around that range, like 1,000. I like to say 1,000, and then it's gonna be a bit more or a bit less, depending on what the circumstance is.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And one more uncomfortable question: how much do you make a month?
A month? I don't know. I think it's very difficult to say. So I have had months where I make, I would say, a pretty good amount. So I try to make 2 to 4 sculpts a month, and then you can kind of figure out it ranges from 1,000 per sculpt, plus minus. And sometimes it's only 2, so then it's not that much. And sometimes it's 4, and then it's a pretty good amount, right? And I also have the teaching, so that also helps. I've also been working on some literature, like writing a book on anatomy and stuff like that, and that takes a lot of time where I don't get paid, where I just need to do it, but I don't get any payment. So that's also affects like it's an investment basically. So I hope it's gonna pay off in the end, but it doesn't pay off right now, right? So it's difficult to kind of calculate. Like I did that Kickstarter where I think I got like, I may be off on the number because it's so long time ago, but it's like 11 to 13,000 euros, something for that. So, but there's also like 3 months or 4 months of work before that, right? So you kind of have to distribute it over that time, and then there are the costs and all of that, and yeah, I don't know. It varies a lot. I can't really give you a specific number other than how much each of them cost, and it can be from 2 to 4 months or something like that.
Sure. Do you feel like a complete sculptor? Do you feel like you have everything, or do you still learn a lot?
I'm still learning a lot. I'm still kind of new. I still kind of. That's kind of the funny thing. Like, I still kind of consider myself like almost a beginner in many ways. It kind of sounds stupid, but I have only been sculpting like digitally for 3 years, around that 3-4 years. I don't remember exact number, but so there's a lot of things that I'm not good at still. Like, I can't do cartoony characters. I have tried taking commissions and they just went horribly. Like, I had to give people money back or something like that, because it's like, but like that's kind of the mistakes that you learn from. Like, you think that, oh well, everything I do goes fine, so I can probably do like cartoony stuff, and then you just can't do it. I've also had like animals. I think animals are very difficult to do, so I've done them, and I think some of them turn out all right, but others of them are like, don't really get it right. So I think there are a lot of areas, and yeah, I think also I need to work on like, I still kind of have that love for high realism in me. So a lot of times I love to kind of add those small things, but it isn't really a nice experience for the painter in the end. And that's also something I like to take into account. I want it to be enjoyable for the person in the end and not a struggle. So I kind of have to dial that a little bit back, I think. So I still love to learn and to refine in the end.
What advice would you give to someone that wants to get into sculpting, or is sculpting already and wants to get better?
I think that if you are considering getting into sculpting, I think you should try and just try and search out for some free material on YouTube. There are lots of material that is very good, and you can get free trials of the software. Of course, the software will cost something, but it's not a lot, and it's a monthly thing. So it's like maybe €30 a month or something like that. So if you can easily earn that back if you actually just start out, almost just doing small things for your friends like bases and stuff like that. So I would recommend new people to just kind of just jump out into it and try and seek out knowledge, especially like video content on YouTube. That's where I learned a lot of the stuff I know. And I would also recommend, like, if you have the possibility to pay, maybe get some like coaching or like teaching from someone, because it's gonna exponentially basically make you better in that small amount of time than if you had done it yourself, because you just have someone with the experience there and someone that can point out the flaws. So I think seek out someone who maybe already has some knowledge, and if you can't, just kind of find some free material on the internet, try out a tutorial or something, and get the trials for the software. If you're already sculpting and want to get better, I think you need to, it's just a common thing I see with a lot of people, is that they'll sculpt something and they'll be happy with the first iteration. So let's say you, like Duncan's wise advice, you need to put like 2 thin coats or whatever it is he says, right? One coat is simply not enough, right? So I see a lot of people is like they are making like 1 coat in sculpting, if you want. Like they sculpt like a stomach or something, like the stomach area, like, and then they're just happy with it after like an hour. And you need to really assess it and go look for references and make sure, does it actually really line up with what it looks like and what you're trying to achieve, and really be critical of it and maybe get feedback from people.
That's some very deep and good advice. I only have 2 more questions. What would you say is the most important thing in life for you?
I think the most important thing is my family. So I have a wife and I have a dog and a cat. Of course, I have my parents as well and all of that, but like my immediate like family and the proximity, I think that's what I cherish the most. And then after that, it would probably just be sculpting, right? I can't say it the other way around, otherwise it would get I would disappear like mysteriously, right? I know. Yeah, I think that's the order of things. Yeah.
Now, probably a politically incorrect question in the 21st century, and you don't have to answer it, but if you meet God, what would you say to him?
It's such a difficult question. I actually really do, like, I always loved the idea of a God, but I just could never really bring myself to truly believe it. It was just like, I think some people, it's like an inherent thing that just really deep inside of them believe it. I just couldn't get myself to it. So I think it would be really interesting to meet like a God, and I would probably ask him why, like, if they created the world, why did they create so much adversity? Maybe, I don't know, and a disparity between different people. I think something like that.
That's absolutely fair. Thorbjørn, thank you very much for your time. That's all the questions that I had. I think we've had a very interesting conversation. I hope everyone enjoys it. And now everyone can put, a face on the name. As you mentioned before, you haven't published your face a lot on your social media, and now it'll be all over your social media. So thank you very much. And great conversation.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. It was very nice talking to you.
Thank you. Right. I will stop the recording now.